El clip que estás a punto de ver es muy relevante, así que por favor presta la atención.
You will not share your personal views on whether it is right or wrong to reinstitute discriminatory policies in this country to prevent Black people from voting?
Senator, my personal views are irrelevant.
Este fue el senador Murphy interrogando al candidato de Donald Trump para ser embajador de Sudáfrica. Y el candidato de Donald Trump, un hombre llamado Leo Brent Posel III, no fue capaz de responder una pregunta sobre que si Estados Unidos debería de discriminar personas de color e impedir que voten, ni otra pregunta sobre si Estados Unidos debería aceptar refugiados por no ser blancos y no permitir la entrada a personas de color o personas morenas como refugiados basándose únicamente en su color de piel. Voy a mostrarte lo que ocurrió porque realmente esto no te lo muestran en ningún otro medio. También voy a mostrarte a otros republicanos interrogando a otros candidatos de Donald Trump para embajador. Un hombre llamado Honorable Amir Khalib. Este hombre fue uno de los que dijo en Michigan que Donald Trump iba a apoyar a los palestinos y que Donald Trump amaba a los árabes. Él fue el tipo que estaba en el consejo municipal ahí. No estoy seguro si lo recuerdas, pero de todos modos, este fue el tipo elegido por Donald Trump para ser embajador de Kuwait. Y este hombre dijo anteriormente que Saddam Hussein era un mártir y felicitó a Donald Trump por invadir Kuwait. Así que déjame mostrarte lo que ocurrió en esta audiencia donde los individuos fueron interrogados. Esto fue lo que dijo el senador Murphy cuando interrogó a Leo Brent Posel, el candidato de Donald Trump para embajador de Sudáfrica. Mira por favor el clip.
Do you support having a refugee admissions policy in this country that only admits white refugees?
Senator, I don't make that policy.
Well, but it's really important. But I think this is if I were to ask this question of virtually any nominee to be an ambassador prior to this panel, that would be an easy layup answer. No, of course we don't support having a refugee policy where we only admit white people. So why can't you give me your personal view on that?
Because, Senator, I am here to serve America and to do what the president is asking me to do. I'll be following the executive order of February.
Would you support reinstituting laws in this country to only allow white people to vote?
Senator, I'm going to serve as ambassador to South Africa, and I'm going to focus on that.
You will not share your personal views on whether it is right or wrong to reinstitute discriminatory policies in this country to prevent Black people from voting?
Senator, my personal views are irrelevant. I am serving here to do what the president is asking me to do in South Africa.
Well, that's just simply not true. The whole reason that you're appearing before this committee is because your personal views, your history is absolutely relevant to your fitness to serve. We wouldn't have this process if your personal views were not relevant. That is pretty stunning that you will not share your views not only on whether we should have a refugee admissions process that is race-based, but you won't share your personal views on whether we should reimpose discriminatory treatment against Black Americans. That is absolutely relevant to your qualifications to serve, and your refusal to answer it, I hope, is something that every member of this committee will think about.
Luego intervino el senador demócrata Van Holden y déjame mostrarte su interrogatorio. Mira por favor.
President Trump made the legally and morally absurd claim that the government of South Africa was engaged in genocide against Afrikaners there. And if confirmed, you, of course, would be our ambassador to South Africa. So I have a pretty straightforward question. Do you agree that that claim was absurd?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. My answer to you is this. If you were to talk to those people who are involved, they fear—
Mr. Bazell, I'm sorry. Genocide is a legally defined issue. No. It's not a question of someone's impression. There's a legal definition for it. To your knowledge, has the State Department legal advisor concluded that the government of South Africa is engaged in genocide?
Senator, I don't know that answer, but Senator—
No, it's a straightforward question. I'm not going to, it's a straightforward question. There's a legal definition of genocide. I want to know if you agree that that's an absurd claim made by the President of the United States.
Senator, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't address it that way.
The President, of course, is reported to be engaged right now in reducing the number of refugees that can come into the United States to something around 7,500, and that the overwhelming majority of those would be Afrikaner or white South Africans. That, in my view, is a gross misuse of our policies. Do you agree that we should not have a refugee policy, admission policy that's based on race?
Senator, in South Africa.
No, I'm asking you if we should have a refugee admission policy based on race. Again, it's a simple question, sir.
Senator, I'm trying to answer it.
Yes or no? Should we have one based on race?
In South Africa, you have thousands of attacks that have taken place against white farmers. They fear for their lives. What the president is saying is that they can come to the United States as refugees if they fear for their lives.
Right. So that's not an answer to my question. There is a legal criteria for people being admitted to the United States. My question was that based on reports, very credible reports, the Trump administration is talking about making it a cap worldwide of refugees and making almost all of them Afrikaners, white South Africans. I know you don't want to answer the question. That sounds like a race-based refugee
Senator, I
policy.
can't answer. I'm sorry, I can't answer the question. I'm not privy to that. I don't know the answer.
Do you agree?
I don't know the answer about camps.
This is a question. It's apart from South Africa. Do you believe we should have a race-based refugee admissions policy? Yes or no?
I believe that in South Africa.
No, that wasn't my question. You're going to be a representative of the United States overseas if you're confirmed.
But my focus,
let me go on. The whole issue of South Africa is not new to you. And back in the 1980s, I happened to be a staff member on this committee when this committee passed the comprehensive anti-apartheid legislation, sanctions against South Africa. As I look at your comments from that period, you were not supportive of that effort. Is that a fair characterization of your statement? I'm being very broad.
I'm not aware of what you did, Senator, but I can tell you what our position was as conservatives back in the 1980s. ANC and Nelson Mandela at that time were aligned with the Soviet Union, which was the biggest threat to peace in the world and the mortal enemy of the United States. As such, we were in opposition.
Okay.
I think, Senator, at the same time, it's an extraordinary evolution that 10 years later, approximately, when the wall came down and that association ended, so too did the relationship that the conservative movement had with Nelson Mandela. If I'm asked today, who do I think is the most revered person in South Africa? Who do I have the most respect for? It would be Nelson Mandela.
Okay, because you've criticized others for what you call sort of the glorification of Nelson Mandela, as you know. So it's interesting to hear that statement today. Let me just say in closing, I think at that time you worked with then Senator Jesse Helms to have a hearing that actually objected to the Reagan administration's decision to send an emissary to meet with the ANC. That was after this committee on a bipartisan basis, led by Senator Lugar, passed the sanctions bill. I think you probably were very strongly opposed to that bill. But in my view, that bill was one of the great things this committee did on a bipartisan basis, and that helped bring apartheid to an end. And people who oppose that have to live with the idea that there could still be an apartheid regime in South Africa today, but for that legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Murphy said it is an easy question. It's a layup when you're asked the question of should our refugee programs be race-based. Our Constitution in the 14th Amendment says all persons, not all citizens, all persons in this country are entitled to equal protection of the laws. You'll take an oath. You'll take an oath to support that Constitution should you be confirmed. It's not a hard question, and your unwillingness to answer it is very troubling. I want to ask you this. Are you aware of the Freedom Plus Party in South African politics?
No, Senator.
Okay, I'll tell you, the Freedom Plus Party is an Afrikaner political party that has the most representation of Afrikaners in the South African parliament and that is part of the national unity government. It was a party that used to be in opposition, but since 2024 has been part of the national unity government. The Afrikaners that President Trump believes are being persecuted are actually represented by a party that made the decision to join the national unity government. And I think that's something you should pay some attention to.
Luego fue el turno de los republicanos y el senador McCormack de Pensilvania interrogó al candidato de Donald Trump para embajador de Kuwait. Él señaló que Galip se había referido anteriormente a los judíos como monos, o que al menos le había dado like a una publicación que decía algo muy similar a eso. Dijo que Israel nunca debió existir e incluso elogió a Saddam Hussein y dijo que él era algo así como un mártir. Este es el candidato de Donald Trump para ser embajador de Kuwait. Miren el clip, por favor.
I was a member of the 82nd Airborne Division that actually helped oust Saddam Hussein from Kuwait. You referred to Saddam Hussein sympathetically as a martyr, which has some significance given that you'd be the United States' highest-ranking diplomat in Kuwait, a country that was invaded by Saddam. How do you justify calling Saddam Hussein a martyr to us, but also to the people of Kuwait?
Thank you, Senator. I explained earlier that post was in January 7, 2020. I was a private citizen before. It wasn't in my official capacity. And it was the day when the American military bases in Iraq were attacked by Iran. I was angry that we did not respond to the Iranian regime. And so in a moment of anger, I recalled and complimented Saddam Hussein for keeping the Iranian regime in check. And I said earlier that probably in his career, that would be the only positive thing he did. And the only thing I would agree with. That, no doubt he was a dictator. No doubt the invasion of Kuwait was a crime, was a violation of the international law. And for those who are offended by that, and those who suffered from Saddam or lost loved ones, I apologize. I'm not very adamant about describing him like that. But like I said, it was a moment of anger. I know he did a lot of atrocities to his people.
Good. Let me move on to my second question. As a mayor, you repeatedly targeted American ally Israel through your support of boycott, divest, and sanctions movement against Israel. And you called for Israelis to, quote, leave the land, unquote, thereby supporting the end of the state of Israel. So my question to you, given the role you are being nominated for, do you accept President Trump's view that Israel is and should be the national home of the Jewish people?
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator, for that question. Let me make it clear that the BDS movement resolution was drafted by a Jewish attorney who is part of the...
This question is, do you agree or do you disagree with President Trump's view that Israel is and should be the national home of the Jewish people? Just a yes or no.
Well, thank you, Senator. That I think at this point we have a peace plan that everybody in the region agreed on.
There's no yes or no. You didn't. Do you agree with the president's position or not?
I think we can coexist in the region, and that's the answer, that everybody has the right to exist now.
Well, no, that's not the president's position. Do you agree with the president?
I trust the president's policies, and I will support his policies.
Okay, let me move to my third question. Yeah. And I want you to take a minute and really try to explain this to me. In 2025, so this is this year, you liked a Facebook comment referring to Jews as, quote, monkeys, unquote, who levy taxes on the, quote, the air we breathe, unquote. Now, I heard you say before that you have this habit that you acknowledge all of the posts, but I don't totally understand that. So could you please provide an explanation for the rationale of liking this comment? And do you agree with that comment?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. First of all, let's correct the misinformation. It's very disturbing. That comment was when I was a private citizen about 6 or 7 years ago. It wasn't this year. It was under a post that I posted as a private citizen, and part of my bad habits of acknowledging reading those posts. But in the responses, I told the guy, you cannot say this in the United States of America. You can say, the media did not translate that response. So it wasn't to 2025. That's misinformation. And just by making assumptions and judging my intentions based on social media posts in the past, I would recommend that you look at the facts and judge my
Well,
actions.
I'm asking for the facts. So would you like to clarify? Do you agree with that statement?
No, definitely, I totally disagree.
And how would you respond to the fact that you liked it in the moment? What is your response to that specific comment now?
At that moment, I responded that this is not appropriate to say this, but in my official capacity, I responded in 2021-22, in the second month of assuming the mayor office, by passing a resolution to condemn anti-Semitism, and that was complemented by the Jewish community. That's how I perform in my official capacity, and I represent everyone. And at the end, I'm a Semite. The Arabs are Semite. Do we read history? How can we be anti-Semite? And I think, like I said, judge my actions and not my intentions, because we have to lay down the facts. Senator Shaheen earlier said that I hired someone after he said, no, that guy has been serving in the city for the past.
Thank you. I'm out of time. Thank you.
Incluso Ted Cruz estaba desconcertado. Así como lo oyes, Ted Cruz estaba desconcertado. Porque ni él podía creer que este hombre haya sido elegido por Donald Trump para ser embajador de Kuwait. Miren, por favor.
And you've been asked about this before, but it is really quite astonishing that on Facebook, you liked a post that called Jews monkeys for their own benefit.
Thank you, Senator.
Why would you like a post that calls Jews monkeys?
Thank you. I explained that earlier. From 2010 to 2000, before I became the mayor, I used to have a bad habit of acknowledging every post, every comment under my post. Doesn't mean that I agree with it, just acknowledging. But there were a response under that was not translated or interpreted that says you can say this in your country, but not in this country, which means that I did not agree with that post, even though I acknowledge it. I know it was a bad habit, but let me be clear. I don't agree with that statement, and I treat everybody with respect in my official capacity.
And let's be clear, the statement that you liked said they are all monkeys for their own benefit. So every Jew is a monkey.
I don't agree with that statement, Senator. And the person who wrote it is mentally challenged in our community. He is well known. I used to have this idea of inclusivity in my past, ideology. I changed in 2024. I changed even my party.
Mr. Ghalib, there may well be positions within the Trump administration that you are qualified to perform in that are unrelated to these issues that you have such passionate beliefs about. I believe your beliefs are sincere. I believe that when you became the mayor of the first city in America to pass a BDS resolution, it's because you believe in BDS. I disagree with you on that. That is contrary to the policy of the United States government, but you're entitled to have your own views.
But
what I do not understand is how you could possibly serve as a United States ambassador for President Trump in the Middle East when you have passionate views, including having been a vocal opponent of the Abraham Accords, the singular and most consequential accomplishment President Trump has negotiated, and your longstanding views are to publicly oppose the Abraham Accord.
Thank you, Senator. Let me be clear. I support the Abraham Accord, and I think there's a golden opportunity to get everybody involved in that. And let me be clear, in February of 2022, as the mayor, the first thing I did is to pass a resolution to condemn anti-Semitism. It's documented. That's what I perform in my official capacity. The other things, people are making assumptions based, trying to judge my intention.
I'm curious, would a statement like all Jews are monkeys, would that qualify as anti-Semitism?
Well, that's, somebody wrote it who's mentally challenged.
Now, my question is, does the statement all Jews are monkeys, does that qualify as anti-Semitism?
I don't agree with it, Senator.
Okay, you're not answering my question.
It's definitely anti-Semitism, but clicking on it doesn't mean I endorse it. It's
actually, like means exactly that. When you like something, it means you like
Senator,
something.
Every post since 2010, every comment, because I used to have like 10, 20 comments. I used to acknowledge it, to read it, but sometimes I would respond under it to oppose it. And there was a response here that wasn't translated by the media that says you cannot say this in your country. It wasn't translated. And when I met with Senator...
But that's not disagreeing with the statement that all Jews are monkeys.
But let me be clear now. I disagree with that. And
But you didn't at the time.
You are making assumptions, sir.
No, I'm asking. I'm not making assumptions. That's
No,
a
I
question.
did disagree at the time, and I still disagree.
Did you disagree publicly? Did you say a word of disagreement, or was your only public statement a like, which is the universal method of saying you like something and agree with it?
Everybody who asked me, I told them it doesn't mean I endorse it. It's just acknowledging reading it, but I am opposing that, and I make it clear now. I passed a resolution to condemn anti-Semitism in all forms or shapes.
What would it take for you to be convinced that there's no white genocide in South Africa?
Well, I can answer that for President. But for him, no, seriously.
I'd rather have him answer.
Yeah, I'd rather answer that. It will be,
Our president will respond to you.
yeah, let me-
Thank you, Mr. President.
it will take President Trump listening to the voices of South Africans, some of whom are his good friends, like those who are here. When we have talks between us around a quiet table, it will take President Trump to listen to them. I'm not going to be repeating what I've been saying. I would say if there was Afrikaner farmer genocide, I can bet you these three gentlemen would not be here, including my Minister of Agriculture. He would not be with me. So it'll take him, President Trump, listening to their stories, to their perspective. That is the answer to your question.
But, Mr. President, I must say that we have, wait. We have thousands of stories talking about it.
Sure.
And we have documentaries, we have news stories. And is Natalie here, somebody here to turn that? I could show you a couple of things. And it has to be responded to.
Yeah, sure.
Let me see the articles, please, if you would. And turn the lights down. Turn the lights down and just put this on. It's right behind you. Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? We are going to occupy land. South Africa occupy land. That's who we are.
Y bueno amigos, este fue el video de hoy día. Espero de todo corazón que les haya gustado y si fue así, por favor háganmelo saber en los comentarios. Además, si este tipo de videos te gusta saber de política estadounidense, te va a encantar suscribirte al canal ya que subo videos así todos los días. Mi nombre es Alvarado, soy economista y estoy comprometido con informarte diariamente. Nos vemos en el siguiente video. Adiós.